Hello and welcome to the Tournament Poker Project. My name's Jon.
And I'm Tain.
And we are two recreational players all the way from Essex, England. And this is our journey to get good enough at poker to feel like we can compete in the World Series of Poker. Right, Tain?
That's right, yep. It's on at the moment. And some of the studying I've been doing is actually quite related to our journey and our final destination. So basically I've been reading, I've been listening to Purposeful Practice for Poker, by Tricia Cardner and Gareth James. So basically I've been listening to too many podcasts, and I've kind of exhausted all the content that I wanted to listen to on strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I can listen to on my journey that's poker related, but it's detached enough that I don't need to be looking at like range charts and formulas and things like that. So instead I'm trying to improve the time that I am studying and practicing and doing things. So one of the things that I'm learning about is outcome orientated goals. So obviously our main goals get to the World Series, but breaking that down into a few smaller outcomes, some milestones, and then looking at the processes that we need to get there. Now, obviously, it's fairly straightforward, having a few milestones on the journey to get to the World Series. But the thing that really stuck out to me is part of my ADHD, and it also comes up in the book, is that sometimes if I don't achieve the goal that I'd set myself on the journey to the greater thing, my mind can then have a kind of an abandonment. All right, that didn't work. I have to abandon it. And I either throw it all in and try to start again completely, or I don't approach it for ages. You know, like for instance, I'll have like a month off of poker because I'm like, nope, didn't do it. Throw my toys out.
Can't do it. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Exactly. And one of the things they're really clear on is having multiple different goals for the exact same outcome, and trying to get your mind in the segment of, you know, my goal is going to be different to your goal. So if my goal fails for whatever reason, look at other people's goals and try to use them. Essentially, that will become a different goal, and then it should help continue my motivation. So for the listeners, I gave Jon some homework.
Yeah, I've said some homework.
Can you put together some of your goals on our way to the World Series? I've got some of mine, and I'm kind of interested to see how similar or different they are.
I reckon they're going to be different. I reckon they're going to be really different because mine are. Yeah. Go on. Well, how do you want to do this? You want to do yours first, or shall I go?
Do one each first. Let's pop it off one. You, me.
All right.
Oh, that way.
All right. My first goal then. Goal number one. I want to document and exercise a pre-tournament routine, which would include things like meditation, the right foods for getting the right sugar levels, you know, slow burning. And then a big part of it is going to be probably like a 30 to 60 minute drills session. And the drills will include things like going over the pre-flop charts, looking at post-flop c-betting, maybe sort of running through some hands and just drilling those for c-betting, and then same thing for in and out of position bet sizing, exploits for different player types, different mistakes, that kind of thing. So success would look like I have a documented pre-tournament routine that I look forward to exercising before I play. I have adapted and added to the routine over time, and it is well tailored to me and has had a positive impact on my game, helping me focus, perform at my best, and enjoy playing. That's my number one.
Brilliant. I mean, this couldn't have gone better, to be honest. Like, I'm already quite excited.
Okay, so that's not. I didn't know if that, because you didn't give me any kind of steer on what type of goal, anything. It was just a outcome goal. Off you go. So I didn't know if that was going to be not really what you had in mind. If it needed to be a bit more, even like maybe it's got to be something more to do with the result of your ROI, or you know, some sort of big win. But no, I'm glad that's not that's not off the mark.
Yeah, no, but this is exactly it. I did everything I could to give you the least amount of detail because I wanted it to be utterly completely different. So
Okay.
my first outcome is reach $500 bankroll playing micro stakes online and around 1,000k bankroll live. So even though that
1,000K.
sounds,
So 1 million.
sorry,
1,000K.
oh sorry, 1k, 1,000k.
I was like, holy shit.
Just get 1 million. I mean, it's got to happen at some point.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So yeah, there's a lot of nuance. I've done it as abbreviated as I could, but there's a lot of nuance to that. So a big part of it is it has to be bankroll, and that means I have to have ground out that value. So I can't achieve that 500 bankroll by playing tournament sit and goes that are above what the bankroll should be. And the reason I've got that there is basically I feel that our level is quite easily $5 to $10 sit and goes, that we'd probably be fairly all right at that. Maybe not brilliant. Sometimes I'm terrible, but we can easily play them tournaments. But if I haven't got the bankroll for that, I want to be smashing the 25-cent tournaments so that I can look at that bankroll and say that bankroll wasn't 5 tournament wins in a row. That was 100 sit and goes that I had to cash in, and out of them 100, 60 of them I cashed with 30 of them wins. That kind of, it has to be a grind, and I have to be in a place where I need to move up both financially and skill level. So that's kind of where that is. But yeah, just 500. I don't know if it's both of them or one or the other, but I've separated live from online just because you normally play for more money on when you play live.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Okay, yeah, love that. That's a good one. Shall I fire away with number 2?
Yeah, let's go.
Number 2 for me. So I want a list of subjects, obviously poker subjects, that covers the major need to knows in poker in a spreadsheet. For example, ranges for each position would be a subject, ball textures, bet sizing, 3 betting, when to, when not, ranges, all in a list. And it's not just sitting there doing nothing. I've got like a routine where I'll mark on it when I've spent time studying one of those subjects, and then I'll use that spreadsheet to ensure that I revisit all the subjects and continue to go over them regularly. So the success for this goal looks a bit like I have a spreadsheet that I've added to over time that covers all the major subjects I need to know to play my best poker. I regularly schedule time in to study and use the spreadsheet as a guide as to what I should study next. That's number 2.
Perfect. So I'm just making a note of these because it's really important that I'm documenting your side.
I'll send these over to you. I'll send these over.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So my one, and apologies that this is going to be really wordy compared to your one. Bink.
Bink. You want to bink?
Bink. I need a bink. So again, this one's, I've done the fewest possible words to explain a lot more than that. So the idea of bink isn't that I want a big win, even though that is what it means. It's that once I've reached the 500 bankroll online, I allow myself to step up to bigger tournaments using, say, 30%. Once I'm like working above that $500, I'll allow myself the first 30% to just take little pop shots. And eventually one of them pop shots will come to land. And it's at that point that I want to make an educated, smart decision about how you use that bigger money to shape my next pathway. So for instance, because it will be a bigger win than my bankroll maybe is entitled to, do I shave off a quarter of it, half of it, and say that's going to be accommodation money kind of thing? So it's not a part of my bankroll, it's savings essentially. I'm going to take that off as my own profit. Or am I going to try to put it aside. So it's still a part of my bankroll, but it's not bankroll that I use as a figure to work out if I can afford to play a certain level or not. It's a separate little bundle. Just that kind of thing. And also, if I get too cocky, it's mindset. That was also the big mindset part of it. If I'm sitting there saying to people, I don't know, I've just earned eight grand, 20 grand, 50 grand. So whatever the bink is, am I going to feel like I'm, walking with my legs wide apart because I'm John Wayne, or am I going to take it as, no, I've worked hard. This is kind of what I should be entitled to because I might have a massive downswing. I mean, am I going to be assured about that? And that will really tell me if I'm actually if I've got the right mindset to play at the World Series, or if I'm still playing a bit amateur. If I'm still, woohoo, look at me, I'm the best. I'm gonna
all on red. Put it all
exactly.
on red.
Bound to win. It's got to come in some point.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I love that. Yeah, decent. All right. And my last one then, short and sweet. I want to play 3 multi-table tournaments per month online and 2 per month live. So on average, and that's between starting August this year and then between August next year. So by August next year, success will look like I've played 36 online tournaments, MTTs, and 24 live MTTs since last August, i.e. next August.
Nice. And my one, I mean, this is the only one that's very, very similar. So my one was reach a 5k bankroll, specifically grinding. And by that, I mean introducing as many multi-tables as I can still function properly with, specifically playing for volume to lower variance, and really setting my sights on how many hours can I do in a go. Like, so it's basically shaping if I was to be a pro or a semi-pro, or if I was to spend every living hour of my weekends playing poker, what's my reasonable ROI? How does adding more tables, adding more hours change that, until I get to a point where I basically know the sweet spot of my profit, where I can comfortably work and then calculate how we get to Vegas on the back of that. Because that should be the point that we can say, okay, we know we need to spend the next 6 months where we really dedicate, not every weekend, but we really dedicate, like, say, 1 day a weekend, really trying to get the bankroll up. And if we do that at the right level, playing the right tournaments, by I don't know, January, we can start booking tickets, that kind of thing. So it's again, this is well in the future and all that, but that's the idea, that it's actually, that's when it becomes trying to get into the semi-pro mindset. And it's not necessarily that I'll be a semi-pro. It's more, how do they do it? How often do they practice? What kind of sessions are they putting in? Yeah.
Okay. Love it, man.
Take it from there.
Yeah. So could you share those with me as well? Like, you send me yours.
Of course
can. I'll send you mine. That's decent. Okay. All right. Well, great to have goals. I think that was a really good exercise to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a point of it. Obviously, I kind of got a bit lax with recording the tournaments I was playing, but I need to start recording those again to make sure I hit my goal number 3. And I'm really excited to start working on these 2 lists, really, this routine with drills and whatnot, and also the list of subjects that I'll be studying regularly.
Yeah.
So looking forward to delving into it.
Quality. And I mean, the reason that this really works for the book, for the purposes of, the purposeful practice that I'm getting from the book, is that if I'm trying to get to $500, and I get to 430, and then I have a massive downswing, and all of a sudden I'm back down to 200, I might be sitting there thinking, okay, that was like a month's work gone. But instead of worrying and stressing about it, I can now completely give up on that and say, you know what, I'm going to spend the next 2 months documenting my pre-tournament routine, because that's something I never would have thought to do. And maybe it's my mindset and I'm not meditating enough and I'm not exercising enough. If I do that, then let's have another look at the $500 goal. Does that make sense? And that's all of a sudden, I wouldn't have ever thought of that on my own. But now you've given that as an alternative. I've got separate goals that I can bounce from, and yours are outside my normal comfort zone, and that's exactly how I need it. So yeah, nice. Purposeful practice, brilliant.
All right, dude. So should we jump into a hand?
We should indeed. That'd be brilliant.
I've got one from a tournament. This was an 8-handed tournament, and I was pretty deep once again. This was, I think we were on the last 3 tables, something like that. I think there was like about 23, 24 players left. So we are in the small blind. The blinds are 6,000, 12,000, and there is an ante as well. So the pot before any voluntary money has gone in is 28,500. It folds all the way round to us in the small blind, and we are holding ace of spades, 6 of clubs. Now, before we jump into what we should do, I think it's worth pointing out that the big blind has a stack of 136,000. So round about 11 big blinds, or an M value of roughly 5. So we have got a much bigger stack than him. We are not quite the biggest at this table, but we're second. We're pretty much the same as the chip leader at this table. So we've got a nice big stack. So ace of spades, 6 of clubs. What are we going to do to this poor big blind here, Tain? What's the move?
It's always going to be a raise. You're raising almost everything. It's offsuit, so you're not overly too worried if you get a fold either. There's no reason to be slow. You're certainly not strong enough to be slow playing it. I think it is just a raise. I think it's not strong enough to min raise because you're not trying. You're not got full value just yet. You know what I mean? There's a lot of flops out there that are you're not sure where you stand. So just standard 3 times big blind, something like that. Depends how the table's been playing. At this stage, min raise could be the general.
It definitely is, especially this late on. Everyone's just min raising. Everyone's tightened up. We're still a couple of tables away from final table, but it is all getting a bit tight. So min raise was the kind of standard.
Then so I certainly wouldn't raise it 3 big blinds at that point then, because not going to achieve anything other than higher risk.
So we do indeed min raise, and the big blind calls.
Sure. So, just as a quick one, because again, this is a part of purposeful practice. What would you have done if you were free bet?
So I've put in 24,000. For him to free bet, he would have to put in something like 70,000. He might have to jam to 3 bet there.
I think
he'd almost be putting in half his stack to do a decent 3 bet on that. So if he'd have jammed,
how many bluffs is he jamming with? I think he'd be bluffing with King Jack, King 10.
Yeah, and I don't know.
I
don't know if he would jam there as a bluff. He's got 5M. It's not quite desperate enough to start. Right, I just desperately need to pick up this 24k that this guy's possibly semi-bluffing me with. I think villain here isn't short-stacked enough to make a desperate bluff jam. I think he's basically, I'm saying his chip stack's a bit too big for that. He probably feels like he could even quite happily fold and just wait for a better spot.
Well, I mean, if in this situation, I know the stacks are getting pretty low, and that does affect SPR significantly. ICM's a factor, but your raising range in that position is massive, 40-50%, I'd say, which means even his free betting range if it's 20%, he's got both position and strength advantage over you in that point. And that's a massive free betting range.
Yeah,
Now,
I guess.
does that make sense? So even though it's free bet shove, which probably reduces it down to 10-15%, are you beating enough of it with your ace six?
I don't know. What does a 15% range look like? A 15% free bet jamming range. What is that? I mean, is it all of the aces, or is it just, the better aces?
If I remember rightly, it's somewhere around king 8 suited up, but only down to like king jack off. I can quickly find out. And we're going to go straight up to 15%. So, I mean, this is just one app's interpretation of 15%. But yeah, so it's down to ace 7 suited, king 9 suited, and then all the broadways, and only down to king jack and queen jack off. And then pocket pairs down to sevens and ace 10 off.
Yeah, I feel like if he jammed, I might have had to have folded. I think I would have put him to be more likely ahead than behind. And it would be a lot, although it would probably make sense for him to jam as opposed to just bet sort of 60k or something. That'd still be a massive chunk of my stack to put in, like a third of my stack there on a6 when I'm probably behind. Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy about calling that.
So it's basically 60-40 for equity sake, and because it would have been a jam, and I agree it definitely would have been a jam from the big blind.
So who, 60-40 to who?
To the big blind. So they've got massive range advantage as well as having just standard strength 60% advantage.
Yeah.
So was you ever getting the pot odds for that? So what's that, 3-2?
Yeah, no, not quite. No, because I'd have to put in an extra 100k, 120k on top of I've only put in 24. I mean, that's, I don't know.
At the moment, the pot is just shy of 60k, but that includes him calling your raise, your min raise. So that would come back out as well.
So there'd be another 120 in there. So it'd be 180k in the pot. And I would have to put in 120 to win it. It's probably borderline. I can't work it out right a second, but that's probably quite borderline whether you should call that or not, like pot odds wise.
So that's pretty for them. That would be a fairly good move because they get a lot of fold equity as well in there.
Yeah.
So for them not, and then coming back to where we're at now, the fact they didn't jam in what is quite a profitable spot for jamming should mean that it very slightly caps their range. So it certainly gets rid of the best of their hands. They've certainly not got the aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, because
I'm not sure that's right. I read this recently. If this guy's playing GTO, you should be jamming with the not so great hands, ones that perform well if they are called, but the really good hands that are going to perform really well, you actually should possibly just see the flop with those. Do you see what I mean? It should be the ones that you want to use to get a fold that won't perform quite as well post-flop. They're the ones that you should use to jam with to save the stronger hands in your range to perform well after the flop with.
Yes, but I think you need to separate out the hands that will actually perform well post-flop. So given that the stage of the tournament, their stack's actually quite low. They've only got an M of 5, so the SPR, I mean, at the moment, their SPR is 2.5. So they're almost pot committed anyway. Falling in that position, so say if they had queens, for instance, a big part of your raising range is aces. Not a pair of aces, sorry. So, suited aces, for instance.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Which has a good, queens don't actually perform post flop very well because any ace or any king comes out and it's not a great position. So even though queens are a premium hand heads up blind be blind, it's not a good hand to try to take post flop, because far too often you're not sure where you're at as soon as an overcard comes. And that's the same for jacks and tens as well. So they would definitely be jamming hands. Something like king queen would be an excellent hand to just call. And then aces, I think aces is, you're completely right. Aces would be an excellent call in this position, because it'll be quite well hidden as well. Because there'll be donks like me that insist that he hasn't got aces because he didn't free bet. So yeah, no, I agree. So it's not capped range.
I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I wouldn't have remembered it if I didn't jump in straight away.
No, of course. So, but that was it really. It's trying to just work out, have they capped their range? I think they've certainly taken out strong pocket pairs, but not the aces, and not a lot of their suited aces and some of the other stuff. Some of their Broadway. So like king queen, king jack would be. It's got a lot of blocker value as well. So it's also another really good hand. Cool. Okay, cool. It's interesting.
Okay. So yeah, like I say, so we've raised pre-flop on small blind, big blind's called. There's 60k now in the pot, or just under 60k. The flop comes ace of clubs, 2 of spades, 8 of diamonds. So not really connected in terms of any straights. You can't imagine him. Well, I don't imagine him to have too many 3-4, 3-5, 4-5 combinations. So I'm loving this flop. I mean, we've now hit top pair with our ace-6, haven't we? So what to do? With aggressive pre-flop, we're out of position. The action is now on us. What are we doing on this flop?
I am looking at that, and it is a bit too static for me, because it's not connected, because it's rainbow. I would be inclined to check, because what would be the better hands we're folding with a raise, or more likely, what hands are we getting value out of? So king 8 is, if he's playing king 8 and you bet, is he calling?
Yeah, I think so. I think he'd call a C bet at least to see what happens on the turn. Yeah.
But I mean, for me, the significant thing is that his SPR is. I said it was 3. It's not. It's 2. His SPR is 2. So either we jam it because we think we've got best value and he'll call it with almost anything, or he's only going to call it with a better ace, at which point tread very, very cautiously if we feel that there were many better aces in his range. And I don't think there are. I think most of them aces he's just going to jam pre. So ace jack, ace queen, ace king, I just can't imagine he'd slow playing them significantly. It's not shit. He'd get enough calls from you, from who's already showed strength and raised, that's not a bad outcome. And even if you folded, picking up your bet and the blind, no, it's just your bet, and getting his blind back is actually significant to his stack. So that even if you got ace king suited and he wanted a bit better action, that's still a desirable outcome. That's still a significant part of his stack. So do it. You again, just jam. You try. It's your best chance to not have to worry about anything post flop. If your stack to pot ratio means that you're going to be all in anyway, why add in some elements of that and negative and the possibility of not realizing your equity?
So we're saying the villain should jam.
The villain should have jammed most of the hands that would be beating you right now. So if he had a pair of 8s, he really should have jammed pre-flop, in my opinion. If he had ace jack, ace queen, ace king, he should have jammed pre-flop.
Fair enough. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So you don't feel like he's got a better ace now, and yeah, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, there are a few aces he might have that are better than yours. There's also some other combos that he might have. King 8, he might be playing some decent suited Broadway that's got kind of a couple of backdoors. Pretty low probability, but they're still there. But then there's a lot of hands that you wouldn't mind keeping in that he would also fold. you kind of don't want to get rid of some of his junk, because I think betting here would get rid of enough of his junk that you do start getting into a position of, what if he was just passively playing ace 10? What if he was playing a pair of twos? That kind of.
So you're saying we don't want, because our hand it's pretty good, but it's not like a premium. It's ace 6. So what we don't want to do is raise here, bet here, and start folding out too many of the weaker hands, because then we're going to be left against a much stronger range, and our ace 6 is good, but it's not brilliant. So yeah, is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. So at the moment, your range is massive still. So even if you check, considering you were the pre-flop bettor, that does, well, you've got check raises, and given the SPR, the check raise is pretty strong. So I reckon even a check doesn't change the fact that your range is massive.
Yeah.
In this position, and a lot of his bluffs might also be good even if he gets called. So if he makes a bluff with king queen, he'll get enough folds that make it profitable, and the times that he gets called, he's still got a lot of outs, or still got a lot of equity in the pot. So yeah, I think a check is right, because I think a bet in this position is, would you be betting bluffs? That's the only other. The only thing that's tickling my mind is that, would you be c-betting bluffs most of the time in this position? If you've just, should you be betting that board because
it's got an ace on it, maybe? Possibly. Considering, I feel like we probably want to get some chips in the pot, right? We've got top pair. We've probably got the best of this hand.
Yeah,
I think we probably want to get some chips in the pot, and c-betting when you're the pre-flop aggressor, because there's an ace on the board, doesn't get tons of folds, even when someone's not got an ace. Like someone with like king 8, like you say, would potentially call that. So maybe it should have been a bet, just because a lot of hands would have continued anyway, knowing that a lot of people just c-bet, post flop as the pre-flop aggressor with an ace on the board.
Yeah, I think his stack's too low. I think that he can't call speculatively in this position. So even though I don't put him on any decent aces, and the fact you've got an ace means there's only 2 out there as well, I think that you do want value for this hand. It's thin value, but I think you got it, because if a card comes out that he's going to improve with, I don't think it will improve it to better than what you've got. If a king comes out, that's actually probably one of the best results you could have. Maybe a queen comes out, a jack comes out, and then you get better value. And if it turns out he had ace jack or ace queen, then all right, so be it.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we do indeed check, but then the villain checks behind, and we go to a turn. So the turn comes the 7 of spades. So the board at the moment is ace of clubs, 2 of spades, 8 of diamonds, 7 of spades. So there's now 2 spades on the board. We're holding ace of spades, 6 of clubs. So we've still got that top pair. Is this the time to bet, or do we want to check again?
Yeah, I would bet in this position, where the 7 weren't an overly scary card. It didn't do an awful lot. If you were ahead, you're probably still ahead. And if you were behind, the 7 didn't change that anyway. It might have now given him a spade draw, which is probably the best position you can be in, because it means it might mean that he's much more likely. Say he's got a spade draw and the 8. So he's got 2 spades. He's got the 8 of spades and something else. He's now going to be a lot more inclined to call, even though you've got the ace of spades. So you know that he'd never be drawing to the nuts. I think he's now got a lot more calling hands to getting the rest of his chips in a position that might not be the best for him. So it makes it a bit more interesting.
Okay, so I think I was thinking here, if he's checked the flop, he's probably not got much any of it. He's got a huge range because it's a big blind defending range, a big blind defending against the small blind open. So it kind of feels like he may have hit the 7, he may have had the 8. His range is so big, I just felt like, let's check it and let this guy start bluffing at the pot. Was my hope. So that is what I do. I do check, and to my delight, the villain does bet around half pot at 29,000. Okay, so I mean, I feel like this is a definite call here. If he was slow playing a better ace, we don't want to go too crazy, although it's likely he's going to get it all in on the river anyway, considering he'll have less than a pot size bet left. So it kind of feels like all the chips are probably going in anyway. If he jams on the river, I don't feel amazing about my A6, but I would feel happy enough to call, knowing that I've kind of allowed him to bluff and that we've kept his range as large as possible by not betting into him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah, I agree with your reasoning, and I like that it's getting them to commit chips. The bet sizing, I think, is quite attractive because if I had a monster, I wouldn't bet half pot to get value.
Smaller, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. If I've got either thin value or this is an outright bluff because it's the only opportunity I've got to win the hand, with maybe, I don't know, a gut shot or something in there. He's playing Jack 10. So he's got a gut shot possibly, but half pot is big enough percentage of the pot that you're going to fold complete air, but doesn't commit enough of their stack that they're if they get re-raised here, it's a fold. That's what that says to me. I could be wrong, but I'd be betting a lot smaller if I'd just hit a set of 7s, for instance. I'd be looking for all them moderate aces to come for a ride.
Yeah,
especially as you've gone check, check, check. So they must now feel empowered to take this pot. So I think you're right. I think they've got a lot of bluffs that they do this with because of the check, check, check. And the bet sizing to me isn't correct. I mean, if he had,
I like that. I like your take on the bet sizing there. It is a bit telling. It just feels too big to be a please call me kind of bet. This is like, hopefully they'll go away if I bet half pot. He's just check the flop and the turn. He's thinking, I need to bet big enough to get rid of this guy. It's the size where, you go, like you say, you go to a bit smaller than that, and he's going to be worried about me actually calling, and then he's in a whole world of pain if he is bluffing. So this is a little bit feels a bit bluffy, which is great, which is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to keep all his bluffs in, and he's now done a bet that kind of looks a bit like a bluff.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so we flat call and go to a river with 117k in the pot. We have still 340k in our stack, and the big blind, the villain, has just 94k, so less than a pot size bet. And the river comes the 2 of diamonds, so no straights got there. There's no flush that got there, but the lowest card now that was on the flop, the 2, has now paired on the board on the river. Is this a cause for concern?
No, not for me. I don't think 8-2's in his range. I don't think King 2, Queen 2. I think there are very, very few 2s that were in his hand anyway.
Yeah, okay.
And all of the other hands would have been beating you without that other 2, regardless. So that that two's essentially a brick.
And would
because he would have either been playing a set or two pair anyway.
And if you had a pair of twos and your opponent's checking, and would you go betting half pot on the turn? You'd probably think, I've got some showdown value here. Let's just see a showdown.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, I'm not sure he would be betting, a holding of a pair of twos.
Yeah, it's a really unusual situation. Like, the half pot is just wrong, where if it had jammed, he'd be doing that with his best bluffs, but also his strongest hands, because his stack to pot ratio is tiny. So a jam's a reasonable thing to do there. And a quarter pot would almost be telling you exactly the same thing. Even though my stack to pot ratio is tiny, I don't want to push you out. Please come along for the ride. I need as much value as I can get here. So it's even though betting more in counterintuitively shows greater weakness, but it certainly isn't as weak as a two. So I don't, apart from promoting his hand to possibly two pair, but it's done that for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right then. So with that in mind, we don't think he's suddenly ahead of us here. He's still potentially slow playing a better ace, or even he could have held ace 8 and has slow played that. That is a possibility, but it's just one hand in many. We've got all those bluffs still in his range. I kind of liking my hand here. I kind of feel like we've got the best of this. If he suddenly jammed, I'm still happy to call this off. Do we bet? The action's on us. We're sitting there with our top pair. Is this time to bet and get some extra value if he is holding an 8 or hit a 7 on the turn? Would he have bet if he was holding an 8 or hit a 7 on the turn? Would he have bet half pot on the turn? It's the same situation where if you've got showdown value but not a super strong hand, you're probably not going to be betting half pot on the turn. You're probably just going to check it down and see what you've won, no?
Yeah, completely. Especially as you're in position, so you can control the pot. Why inflate the pot by half with a mediocre hand? Like what have you achieved other than almost committing yourself to the pot now? Yeah. So if you have got king 8, or let's say you got a pair of jacks, what have you done? Like, you've just made the plot nice and big, and you don't have a clue where you are still, because any ace would have called you. So
yeah. Well, to me, I don't think he's probably jamming with jacks and things like that pre-flop anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
It feels like he can't have hit any of this, and it feels like because of that, if we bet, he's just going to fold. But we want to get max value, obviously. So to me, it feels like, as with the turn, we need to check this and hope he has one more stab at it with a bluff.
Yeah, completely agree. I'd say, apart from an absolutely tiny bet, even now, I just don't think I think his SPR so low.
Yeah,
you just can't give him any reason to fold. Yeah,
he's folding anything. I think we've got to check this. We've got to let him have another go at the pot with his complete air.
Yeah. No, completely agree. Okay.
So we do check, and the villain fires not quite half his stack, but a big chunk. Villain fires 38k into the 117k pot, so approximately 1/3 pot on the river. Now this, if you were suddenly to come into this hand and see that pot, that bet, you would maybe be thinking, oh, in isolation, that looks a little bit like a value bet on the end there from the villain. But considering how we've analysed this and what we think he's could possibly have here, this just looks like a terrible bluff. A decent bluff here would have been a jam, and as we've decided, we're probably calling that anyway. But if he did want us to go away, he would have had to put all of his chips in. 38k, a third pot bet. He can't be thinking we're folding, because we suddenly think he's got such a strong hand that this is a value bet. You know, what did he think we called a half pot bet with on the turn? And if he thought we had an 8, right, and we've got a pair of 8s, so on the turn we've called because we've got showdown value, is he really going to get rid of us with a 38k bet into 117k? You must know we're calling that all day long. I cannot understand this bet sizing at all, unless he's got an absolute super strength hand and we're just mugs. And he's just had us on all the way.
I don't know. Look, there's just too few value hands in his range, really.
Yeah.
So the very best hands at the moment on that board, other than a pair of 2s, which would just disregard because it's easy to. The very best hands he would have free bet jammed with. So we've got rid of ace king, ace queen, ace jack, and that includes off probably ace 10. I mean, maybe not ace 10 off, but ace 10 suited. I'd say he should be jamming. He should be jamming with like king queen suited as well. But I can very much understand why he would just check.
What are you talking about? Pre-flop?
Pre-flop. So pre-flop, he got rid of most of his good hands. So if we assume that only the solid Broadway and aces were in his range, then his turn bet didn't make sense.
No.
Like, so if he's got king queen, king jack, anything like that, well, that's not winning, so that's not a problem. If he's got very strong aces or a pair of aces, then the half size pot bet is silly. That don't make any sense. That weren't for value. Why would you have done that? Why wouldn't you have jammed? You know what I mean? That was your best chance to get all your chips in, as well as make it look like you've gone all out for a bluff, give you a difficult decision.
I wonder if he's got a couple of spades. Imagine if he's got a couple of spades, you wouldn't want to do anything with that on the flop, but you might, after seeing a check in front of you on the turn, you might decide, you know what, I could take this down, and I've got some equity here. I've got a chance of hitting my flush if I am called. I wonder if it was a semi bluff on the turn, and now it's just an out and out bluff on the river because he missed. It could be a couple of spades. It could be a couple of spades. But either way, if this is a bluff, it's a pretty bad one.
Yeah, I can't see enough hands that would take this betting line. Like, this is a smaller bet than the last street, like, which normally shows weakness because the pot is now bigger. So a hand that was good enough to call, what was it, 50 odd thousand on the last street, or what was his last? I can't remember what his last street bet was.
I think the last bet was 30,000 because it was about half pot and the pot was 60k. So right, this is slightly more, but proportion to the pot, it's smaller.
Exactly.
If we're talking about bet size in terms of proportion to pot, then yeah, it's a smaller bet in proportion to the pot.
And that is pure weakness, because other than the draws, so he must only be putting you on a draw and nothing else, because there is no, and which isn't value. You know what I mean? If that's the only thing that you're beating, if that's the bluff range that you're trying to get value out of, then you're losing. Then he would be losing to that kind of betting line, because it's I can't put him on anything. I can't put him on a good enough value.
There's a couple of hands actually I could put him on, but it's very small number of combinations considering the size of his range. I think he could have ace 2.
Yep.
That's a potential. Would play like this. Ace 8 is another potential one, but he might have jammed that pre. So yeah, I think there's a couple of hands like that, but there's like 95% of his range is from what I can see, just out a complete air.
Yeah, again, like, I'm still struggling to see two pair on that flop that doesn't bet, or that then bets half pot, because
he might have thought damn, like I've just hit 2 pair, I'm an absolute monster, but this guy's checked in front of me. If I bet, maybe he was just scared we were going to fold on the flop. And this is a bit monsters under the bed now. I don't know if it's even worth entertaining a conversation on it, because frankly, if he's got ace 2 or ace 8, then like good luck to him. You know, he's hit a 1 in 50 chance of hitting a 2 pair on a flop. Yeah, I think this is just a call all day long. He's probably got a bluff. There's a slim chance he's got 2 pair, but nothing to even really concern us about.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say then is, would jamming at this point only be called by a hand you're losing to?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, well, maybe
Would you
King
do that
8.
with-
Maybe if he's played King 8 really badly, if he doesn't understand that he's got a condensed range and that he's, when he's got the King 8, he should be probably checking this down, because we're letting him, and that'd be our mistake. So, but there's a chance, obviously, he's got King 8 and he's just thinking, I've got King 8 and I could be ahead here, so I'll get some value. I don't know. Maybe that's even not a mistake. It feels like a mistake to be betting King 8 when there's an ace on the board, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is what they call thin value, and if he's got King 8, it's a good bet, considering we check the flop and check the turn.
Yeah.
Don't know.
I mean, the only thing that I'm at now is, does he have any bluff catchers that you beat? Obviously, you'd beat. That, given the remaining bet is 57,000 into a
55.
well, if you add the 38,000 on top of that, so yeah,
That's what
57,000 into something that's not too shy of 200 grand.
No, because the 155 includes his 38.
Yeah, but you'd have to call that and then raise it another 57 on top.
Oh, I
so
see.
if you called his 38, it puts it very near 200k.
Yeah.
And then 57 to push him all in. Do even his bluff catchers have to call? And what would be a bluff catcher in that position? Like, I would say a pair of 9s wouldn't be a bad bluff catcher. I don't know.
But again, it would be such a mistake for him to be betting the turn with a pair of 9s, I would say.
It could just be a find out where you are. He's trying a probe bet without consideration.
Yeah, could be.
Could be that he's betting his pair. Could be betting a draw. If we forget the 9 and put him on something else, Jack 10, bet him with a gut shot. But then that wouldn't be a bluff catcher. So I don't know. Cool. I mean, I think we're right that there's just not enough hands that are calling a shove that we're 100% beating. And there are some hands which, albeit if he has played badly, there are some hands that are going to be demolishing us. I don't think there's enough extra value. Just
I feel like it's marginal. With all this time we've had to analyse the hand, a jam possibly is a good move, considering there's probably more bluff catchers in his range, or badly played 8s and 7s in his range, than there are bluffs that are going to end up folding. Strong hands that are going to end up beating us. So it could be actually marginal that actually we should jam here, and a few times that he's actually got a really strong hand and he's got us crushed. Yeah, far smaller than the amount of times he's going to bluff catch and we get that extra 56k. So possibly, but I don't mind a call here. I think it's a sensible. We're more than likely ahead here. Let's just call it down. Let's just call it and collect the chips.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
So Hero does make the call. So for a final pot of 193k, Willem flips over complete air.
Rubbish.
King 3 offsuit. So yeah, we called it. Absolutely nothing there. We had the 3, we had the backdoor straight, if you can call it that.
Even worse than I thought.
Pretty bad. I mean, it's complete air. He's literally stabbing. I think we worked it out on the turn. I think your thought there on the bet sizing was really telling. The turn bet, he bet half pot. You know, if he had a really strong hand, he wouldn't bet quite so big. He'd be trying to rope us in, you know, with our raggy aces. So yeah, I think it was telling on the turn, and we just worked it out, didn't we? We just knew he really was unlikely to have anything there.
Yeah.
Could he have called off for his tournament life with King High? Probably not.
No, I
Probably
agree.
Not. He might have done, but I think the only time we're going to get him bluff catching would be if he played an 8 or a 7 badly and started betting it on the turn when he probably should have checked. But he didn't do that. He was betting with complete air. Fair enough. You know, he's trying to take the pot away. I think his bet size was too big on the turn. That was telling. And then on the river, it was just too small for us to even consider folding.
Yeah, basically, given these betting patterns and how they're not really fitting into any of the value hands that he's hoping to claim to have, they're also the type of player that don't understand the best times to bluff catch, and that sometimes King High is a great bluff catcher.
Yeah.
And also to work out this probably wasn't that position. So I think we're right in that pretty much 100% of the time he would be folding in that position anyway. So there was no extra value. Plus it helps to he did call it. So we've got a showdown to talk about.
Is that a sly dig at all the times that we've gone through a hand for an hour and then it doesn't show down?
Yeah, I can't deal with. It's just I need closure.
I know.
I have to start writing letters to these players, begging them to tell me what they had.
What did you have? Please tell me.
Yeah, I keep thinking, like, as far as I'm aware, Ignition Poker isn't available in the UK, and I would love to have a version of that. And it might be there is out there, but I haven't found it. Where, do you know, Ignition, everyone's anonymous, so you can't track players. And because everyone's anonymous, I think after a week you get to see everyone's whole cards.
Oh, all right, that's amazing.
I think
after a week, I love that. When you just really need to know, and it's like, I need to wait a week now.
Yeah, it could be that there's people in America shouting at us, telling me I'm a dick, and I've got that completely wrong. I don't know. We don't get Ignition from, as far as I'm aware. So This is all hearsay and speculation. But that would be excellent. I'd absolutely love it if I could see that.
Well, people pay, at the table, people pay money to see people be told what their cards were, don't they? I'll give you 50 quid if you tell me what you had. People get desperate.
Just for closure. That's me.
Cool.
Don't give me any money.
All right. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, it was good hands. Yeah.
Yeah, nice one.
Few bits that I thought were really good. Bet sizing is something I really need to pay. As much as I talk about it when we're doing reviews, it's because I've taken my time. It's really easy to see. I've been able to work out SPRs and where your value's coming from, where your bluffs are coming from, and what you're trying to achieve with them. And I need to just practice that so that it's automatic. I can do it when we're doing it at leisure and taking our time. And if I want to waffle for 20 minutes before something clicks, I can. But I want to do that in 8 seconds before I get beeped at.
Yeah, cool. Okay, mate. Well, always a pleasure, Tain. And
cheers.
Thanks for the prompting for us to get some goals in the on the cards. Forgive the pun. So I'm gonna start working on mine this week. So maybe we'll have something to start constructing together in a way of a routine, pre-routine or whatever for next week.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep on with the purposeful practice, and I'm going to continue to cite Trisha Cardner and Gareth James as stealing all their ideas, basically. Although some of them is them stealing others' ideas who steal someone else's ideas, because it's kind of what psychology is. Here's a study, here's something that works, and then everyone pilfers it and puts it together in the best possible way. So purposeful study, man. It's quality.
Love it. Okay, well, look, thanks to the listeners as well if you've been listening in. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again soon.
That's one. Take it easy. Cheers, everyone.